Paul Crawford's on deck.
Steve Nelson, representing myself. On this issue of the demerits, it looks to me like the trappers are being singled out and picked on. Thanks.
My name's Dr. Paul Crawford. I'm representing myself. Thank you to the committee for all the time and effort that you put into listening to everybody. I'm going to start out by telling you a story on behalf of my friend Brian, who's not able to be here today. He's a gentleman farmer in Las Vegas. He raises chickens for laying, for eggs, laying hens. And about 4 weeks ago, he had a coyote come in and kill 12 of his chickens right in the middle of Las Vegas. So I know some of you on the commission represent farming. So he asked me to tell you his story, because that directly impacted his way of life, and changing anything other than changing the regulations in Clark County to anything other than what they are will only result in more coyote human, coyote farmer conflicts in the future. Because as we heard earlier this morning, the home range of the coyote's pretty darn big, and as they get more and more in the Red Rock areas and up in those areas that are in pink on the map, they're going to roam into the city looking for garbage and chickens and cats and dogs. Second point, there is a village at Cold Creek, but I've been out there a bunch of times, and usually there's a couple ATV people around, and that's about it. There's not too much else going on out there. And quite honestly, the areas that are shaded, many of them are what would be considered to be the prime trapping areas. So driving another 15 minutes, Commissioner Robb, is not really feasible. And quite honestly, hunting and trapping are a lot different. You know, none of the commissioners have said they're familiar with trapping. Trapping means going regularly, another 15 minutes every day or every 4 days for a month makes a big difference. That's a lot of time. It adds up. I didn't add it up, but it's a lot of time. It's a lot of gas, just so I can walk up that mountain again. And the last point I have is just to reiterate what you've heard a million times throughout the course of all this, is that this is a slippery slope, and if we start down, well, we've already started down it. If we don't jump back up on top, we're going to be just like California in 10 or 12 years. Thank you.
Don Moldy and then Dave Gowan.
Mr. Chairman, Don Moldy, speaking for myself. I'm puzzled by the failure to understand what humaneness is all about. One time I turned loose a coyote from a trap, been in several days. The portion of the foot below the jaws of the trap was black. The skin was broken. You could see the tendons and the bone. There was blood on the trap, blood on the ground. And when I released the coyote, obviously it couldn't stand on the leg as it limped away, falling every time it put weight on its front leg. That's one simple definition of humaneness. That shouldn't have happened. And that animal shouldn't have had to suffer like that. But I give you something more interesting. I give you the warden's report regarding a citation that was issued to one of your constituents in February for failing to visit his traps in a timely manner. While he was cited for basically a 10-day visitation screw-up, if you read the warden's report, you'll see that the traps in question were really not visited for almost 2 weeks. 2 weeks, not 96 days. And this person was in a unique position to know what the trap visitation law is, because he's been one of the noisiest voices in saying that everything is fine, nothing is wrong, don't change anything. And if you read the report, you'll see that this person had traps basically from the Smoke Creek Desert, according to what he told the warden, all the way up to the Cedarville Airport. And who knows the number of traps? I'm sure dozens anyway, possibly 100, 200, who knows? He's claimed in the past that he had 300 traps. So we have a situation then where animals, targeted or not, could have been sitting in traps for up to 2 weeks, with this person apparently not feeling well, but also apparently picking people up from airports and buying new tires at Costco and whatnot. To me, this is an egregious violation. There's nothing simple or excusable about this in my view. The traps in question could easily have been described to someone who didn't even know what trapping was about as to where to go find them and have a look at them. It would have been very easy to do. But the most concerning thing about this is that in the comments that I saw from this person in the newsprint after this matter became public,
30 seconds.
it appears that, from his point of view, and more of it I heard today, that trap visitation is simply a suggestion or a recommendation to trappers, perfectly adjustable by individual circumstances that may come up. And I'm not sure that that's what we're talking about here. I hope it isn't. And so I simply bring this to your attention for educational purposes. Thank you. I have a couple extras if anybody wants.
Dave, and then Fred Fisher next.
For the record, Dave Gowan, representing the Nevada Houndsman Association. Do I get 6 minutes for that?
If you're a houndsman, if you're representing them and you guys took a formal position, yes.
Okay. Well, for the record, the Nevada Houndsman Association recommends not accepting the proposals and the maps. I'd like to start with making a parallel with the maps, and it's been brought up by several other people, but and how these maps aren't necessarily going to, this isn't going to be the end of the game. We could compare this to the maps that were created involving the bear hunt, which, in fact, there was a goodwill effort made, I think, by you, Mr. Rob, to make a map and remove the Tahoe Basin from the bear hunt to try to appease people that were opposing the hunt, which many of those people are here and in these same groups today. And then now we're facing removing the bear hunt altogether. That actually had no effect on the attitudes of those people and individuals. So it's just a point to take into mind that this is just the tip of the iceberg. The other thing is I'd like to say here too that most likely every person in this room is a trapper. It's just, you don't think of it that way. What's the difference between trapping a mouse in your kitchen, which I would say that probably every person in this room has done that, and trapping animals out in the field? Does that make you somehow elevated because you killed something that was in your house? Use a trap to remove an animal, and a life is a life. Then also, we talk about cruelty and things like that, and you know, cruelty requires intent. You know, nature in itself is inherently cruel. The welfare of a population of animals is what sportsmen, and I believe NDOW, is interested in. The overall health of the population versus individual animals' feelings. And we're here to protect the resource and the animals in general. And the fact is, you know, I personally spend over 200 days a year in the field as a guide, a hunter, and a trapper. I've witnessed all kinds of inhumane things that, if you want to call it inhumane, I don't call it inhumane, I call it nature. And I believe that I'm part of nature. Coyotes eviscerating deer and consuming them alive. You know, nothing dies a nice death in nature. Truthfully, a hunter's bullet or a trapper taking an animal out of the ecosystem is more more humane, in fact, than nature's ways. I'd also like to read here, because I believe that these maps, there's probably some people in there that aren't being considered within these map areas, and that's people that are in the agricultural industry. And an aspect to trapping that really isn't brought up. Basically, we're in this room, it seems we're talking just about fur bearers. There's also other aspects to trapping, like damage control to farmers and industry, small business, things like that. And I'd like to read a letter here from a friend of mine who was unable to come for health reasons. He was a trapper in Nevada for over 30 years and is retired now. His name is Jerry Stager. My wife, Melba, and I trapped for a living in Nevada, full-time year-round. We trapped coyotes in the winter to help the ranchers and trapped pocket gophers in the summer to help the farmers. That being said, we became quite well known for our knowledge regarding trapping. Then in about 1990, there was a meeting in Carson City before the Senate to abolish steel-jawed traps in the state of Nevada. Prior to the meeting, Senator Ghetto called asking me to testify before the Senate regarding gopher trapping and its benefits to the farmer. That particular year, as I recall, we had trapped 89,373 gophers. The next year, my wife, along with 4 helpers, caught 120,000 gophers. Incidentally, this was from April till September. Additionally, 73,600 of them were caught on the TS Ranch east of Battle Mountain. Additionally, we also trapped in Diamond Valley near Eureka. There, the Rodent Control Board concluded that they would lose the value of 2 bales of hay per gopher per year. Hay at that time was going for $4.50 a bale, so they estimated their loss to be $9 per gopher. This estimate includes not only the greenery they would eat on the surface, but also the roots, therefore killing the plant, and also the damage to their equipment. The gopher mounds clog the headers and dull the blades on the swathers, raise havoc to the rakes and balers. Most of the Diamond Valley hay was shipped to the dairies in California, and if there was any gopher dirt in the bales, the dairies would reject the whole load. Can you even begin to imagine what a devastating and dramatic effect this would have on the farmer and ranchers by reducing the check log to 24 hours? That's just a perspective, and I don't see, maybe I haven't seen where this is being separated out for farming and those things. But there are economic effects to this too. And I have a lot more to say, but I won't say it. But we need to consider those people and the economic effects on those people that are to be affected by enacting these regulations without considering that firsthand. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the work that you guys did on this. It's not an easy position to be, and I don't envy you having to deal with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fred, and then Mitch Bailey.
First off, I just want to say to the trapping fraternity here that I'm part of, how proud I am of people here today to be part of this in some small way. I guess I would just, for the most part, just say ditto to most everything that they have said to you. These are great women and men, and if you know them, they're very independent, they're very self-sufficient, they're no burden for the most part on anyone, and they are great patriots of this country, and they're very common sense oriented, and these were good words and a lot of ideas that they shared with you. And so I am opposed to the committee's recommendation. However, I want to sincerely express my concern to those on the committee who I know did try to become aware of what's going on, try to know where we're coming from, and some that I heard went above and beyond the extra effort to try to make themselves even more knowledgeable, and I for one appreciate that. This is just something that is so deep for so many of us. I know most of you know that by now, whether you agree with it or not, but it's more than can be said in a couple of minutes. I mostly just wanted to share a little story. This is, go back about 35 years. I went to my first Board of Wildlife Commissioner meeting in Ely. I been out of the UNR graduate for about a year and a half or two, I guess. And the first one, I listened to the Department of Wildlife present a lot of information about lions, particularly, I recall, and studies and stats. And I listened to these two guys talk there. I'd read about those kinds before, and I thought, and the guy was named Dart Anthony. He was the Southern Nevada Humane Society president at the time. And the other one was a guy named Don Moldy. And I listened to him and I thought, man, because I often wondered, why are we having all these controversies and stuff? I mean, there's so much information that's accurate and could be substantiated. So they broke for lunch, and I went out and I hailed them down, and I asked them if they could stop and talk to me for a minute. And I said, hey, you know, I've read about people like you, but I'd just like to take your time and see what makes you tick. And they both chuckled, you know, and we sit there and we talked. I was being very sincere, asked some questions, and
30 seconds.
okay, I went away afterwards, well, thinking, well, Don at the end concluded by saying, you know, you're an endangered species, meaning I was trapped, and we're going to get rid of you guys one regulation at a time, one day at a time, one thing at a time. And over the years, I've repeated that so many times to people about where some of these kind of people come from on the other side. There was no way I was going to turn that around.
Okay, we're up on time, so
All
if
right.
you could wrap it up.
All right.
Thank you.
Mitch, and then Mike Reese.
Do I get 6 minutes if I'm a board of director on NVTA for Washoe County or no?
I'm sorry, Mitch,
I'm a Washoe director for NVTA, and do I get 6 minutes for that or no?
we only allow 1 6-minute
Yeah, that's good.
per association.
Okay, so I'm Mitch Bailey. I'll be speaking for myself. I'm 54 years old. I was born in August 1960. And what that means is I have to take hunter safety before I can get a hunting license. What it also means is I know a lot about hunting, fishing, trapping, guiding, taxidermy, you name it, because I am 54 years old. And what I don't understand is trapping seems to be at the forefront here because of the method of take. All three involve the opportunity to kill an animal, whether it's fishing, hunting, or trapping. But trapping seems to be coming under fire. And if it's because of the method of take or the equipment used in the method of take, I'm wondering if somebody could explain to me why there's no requirement to get a trapping license. There's no prerequisite, there's nothing. But if I want to go kill a dove, I'm going to go take an 8-hour hunter safety course. I'm going to go fill out a workbook, and I spend time doing it. I'm going to spend 8 hours in a chair getting taught what to do and what not to do. But we have 1,500 or so trappers in this state, 187 of which are brand new. And you know what they had to do? Absolutely nothing. They went down to Walmart, they bought their trapping license, and they went out and set traps. Their traps probably weren't legal, their lure probably wasn't legal, the location they chose probably wasn't very responsible. And I'll tell you a little story. When I was 18 years old, I decided I wanted to trap, and I went down to Mark IV and Strike and spent about 10 times more than I should have on 5 traps, a book, and a little jug of lure that didn't work. So I thought, you know, I'll just kill some rabbits and throw some planted trout from the Truckee River out there and try to catch some coyotes and bobcats, and I'll use a little 6-inch stake of conduit to hold my trap down. And I hopped on my horse and went out and checked my traps, and they were all gone. So was the lure, so was the rabbits, so was the fish. And I gave up trapping until 1986. I had a neighbor move in next door to me, and he became my mentor. And he taught me how to trap. But the most important thing that man taught me was where not to trap and what not to do. And to this day, I'm successful in catching probably 400 to 500 bobcats, countless coyotes. I've run trap lines over hundreds of miles across Nevada. I've never been arrested, I've never been cited, and I've never had a dead animal in my traps. And that's Joel Blakesley, the man that's sitting right over there. Taught me everything I needed in 8 hours. That's all it took. So give these guys 8 hours of a prerequisite before they can go grab a trapping license and run amok. Because if you do that, you're probably going to eliminate all the needs for maps and everything else that you got going on in these congested areas. You close hunting in these areas. If you have to close trapping in them, close it. But don't start picking it apart piece at a time. The Sheldon's closed, close some other areas.
Thank you, Mitch.
Mike? And then Rex Flowers.
For the record, Mike Reese. Since Paul's not here, I'm talking on behalf of the Clark County CAB. I just want to talk real briefly. We were not able to address this issue of the maps and stuff because we had the incorrect maps and we got the updated map 24 hours before a meeting. Paul checked with the DAG and said, you can't take a vote on this. You can probably discuss it, but you can't take any action. I want everybody to understand that, to understand why Clark County didn't put in an action report on that. It's because we couldn't. We wanted to, but we couldn't. So I'm going to take that hat off. I'm going to put on the hat of the president of the Southern Nevada Coalition. Firearms area. I want to give a 30-second history on the firearms area in Clark County. $65 million went into a brand new shooting park. There was a concerted effort between the city and the county and Metro Police Department because what was happening in the 70s, 80s, and 90s is people were going on the outskirts of town, taking refrigerators, washers, dryers, any trash stuff to shoot at and leaving it there. They were trashing it up. So therefore, they all got together and said, okay, we'll build a public shooting facility. But how do we get rid of that trash? Well, let's make that firearms area so big that when Metro flies over the helicopter, all they have to do is see somebody out at a wash or something. They can call a squad car and they can go and do it. It only took a year and everybody got educated on that. That was over 10 years ago when that took place. So when you sit and you look at that, it's not because of the safety factor. It was because of the $65 million. You want to call it political, whatever it was, but that's the reason that firearms area got put in the way it did. Okay? Commissioner Macbeth, I applaud you. I thought I was the only one that looked at the length of time in a trap. What difference does it make if it's here or if it's in the top part of the state? If an animal's in a trap 24 hours, 96 hours a week, it's still in a trap. I appreciate you for bringing that up. I've heard a couple of people talk about politics. Mission statement of the Coalition for Wildlife is preserving Nevada's wildlife heritage through political action, education, and conservation. First and foremost, it's political action. We are hoping to take the heat off you guys as we meet with the legislators. Okay? In 6 months, I've met with 10 face-to-face now. I've addressed this. I've addressed 226 with it. And in Clark County right now, in the last 18 months, 12 schools have been on lockdown for predators. Of that, Metro has shot coyotes on school property during the middle of the day. And now probably averages over 60 calls a month because of predators coming into the suburban area. If we take, not that the trappers are the total solution, but if we take the trappers and tell them to stay away, we have nothing to police our suburban areas. If we had thieves and crooks and stuff walking the streets, the solution isn't to take more cops off the street. The public would want to see more cops on the street. Therefore, I'm advocating that we see more trappers in the area. SB 226 went from 200 feet to half a mile from a dwelling. As I've talked with some of the legislators about this, I said, you guys forgot something. You forced the Wildlife Commission to take action so drastic that go from 200 feet to half a mile when every cab in the state only said 1,000 feet with the exception of Clark. They went 500. You failed to address the fact that a committed sex offender only has to go 1,000 feet from a school. And you are telling a law-abiding trapper to go a half a mile. Where's that justice? We're talking about gregarious ways. Mr. Blakesley talked about, well, it can go back the other way. I hope it goes back the other way. That's the reason we are in existence, to sit in front of the legislators, the assemblymen, the senators, and people, and tell them the prescription that you gave worked for a minute, and that's it. When that happened, we started getting all these predators into our valley. I've been in Las Vegas for 40 years. Never in 40 years have I seen the amount of predators in our valley. I'm not talking outskirts, folks. Daly School, where Senator Parks is the senator for that, is in the center of town, Tropicana and Eastern. They shot a coyote off the school grounds. Shannon Eilerman brought a pad up here. I can't remember how many thousands of calls Metro's had on this. We have a Metro officer who's on our cab, who has reported at our cab on night shifts, he's seen coyotes walking across the streets with cats. We're not talking the outskirts of town. People are thinking that we have all those predators coming in because we're in their area. Newsflash. We haven't built anything on the outskirts of Las Vegas in 3 years. We have the highest unemployment in our valley. Construction is at a halt. It's just now starting to pick up. Drought? We've had drought for 10 years. The animals aren't coming in looking for water, and if they are, why did they wait 8 years? The only thing that happened was 226. As I've sat down honestly and met with the legislators and explained this to them, I can't tell you some of the words that weren't cuss words that they said that, oh, wow, we went that far? Yes, you did. You forced the Wildlife Commission to probably do something that they thought that they were doing something for you guys. It's backfired. It's time to change that prescription. I say leave it at 96 hours statewide, and let's do some education. I am all for the education of this. Southern Nevada Coalition would like to get on board and even help with that education. Again, I reiterate, let's not change the demerits. We have more fishing violations than hunting.
30 seconds.
I have yet to have a discussion of demerits on fishing. 100 times more violations on fishing versus hunting or trapping. Just balance the scales. Thank you.